So the first question is just to introduce yourself and your role at your publishing company.
My name is Gayna Theophilus, and I am the Sales and Rights Director at Annick Press. I'm also an acquiring editor, but rights and sales is my main job.
Can you describe your role in detail for us, please?
Sure. So when you acquire a book, you acquire a number of different rights. So you publish your own edition, but you also often try and acquire the right to publish in different languages and different territories. You'll try to acquire the rights for things like theatrical adaptation, film, TV rights, things like anthology and serial rights so that you could use excerpts in different pieces of work. And it's my job to license those rights.
Now, if you could please walk us through a typical day at work and then maybe a not so typical day.
There aren't really any typical days for me at work. So I think it could be anything from meetings about rights issues to talking to agents, it's emailing, a lot of emailing. But then there's also things like the editorial piece. So as a rights person, you are involved in a lot of editorial conversations, marketing, and so there's a lot of collaborative work between different departments. So a lot of chatting about different things, a lot of correspondence between sub-agents. Sometimes you are talking to the authors and the illustrators. Sometimes you are drafting contracts. Sometimes you are planning to send material overseas. Sometimes you are planning to attend a fair. Sometimes you are attending a fair. Often I'm not in the office. So it's really, there is no typical day.
How does your role fit into the ecosystem or structure of your firm, and why is it important?
So my role fits into the structure of my firm in sort of in between editorial and sales. I think we have a little bit of input on the kinds of books that are being acquired and whether it's something that we could then see potential in selling rights. So there is some sort of collaboration on the front end of acquiring titles, and then on the other end, once we do have a book and we have acquired the rights, then we work with sales and marketing to really sort of help position that book, not only in the market here domestically, but also overseas, and where it might appeal to a buyer who would want to translate it and produce their own edition. And it's an interesting place to be because I think a lot of people don't necessarily know about rights or that it exists often within publishing companies. And so basically we're trying to sell rights to you want different editions of the book to be out in the world and to have a wider readership, of course, but also the publishers who acquire foreign rights, for example, will sell their own edition and then they send you royalties. So it's also, it can be a really lucrative set of income streams if you sell a lot of rights to your books in different markets.
What is your favorite part of your job?
The people are wonderful. You work with really interesting creators, and the people who tend to work in publishing are really great most of the time. So you are surrounded by people who are very creative and who are thoughtful and interesting. So that part's wonderful. And there's kind of an added layer of that on the right side because you're dealing with people like that from around the world, which I really love. And you get to meet with them from time to time at fairs. So that's probably my favorite part. In addition to the books themselves, obviously. A hoarder of books, like I think most of us are.
Please tell us about an unforgettable moment you experienced as part of your job.
When I was on my first work trip, I went to the Bologna Book Fair, and it was really incredible to see all of these publishers from around the world with all of these beautiful books everywhere, and just, thousands of book people milling around talking about books.
What specifically got you interested in pursuing publishing as a career?
I had a degree in English literature and knew that I loved books, and graduated and had no idea what to do with my degree. Someone very kindly sort of nudged me in the direction of a publishing program. And so I took some classes at Ryerson and I got an internship right away. And it was for rights, which I knew nothing about, but like it discovered something really special. And yeah, I loved it.
Why do you think independent Canadian publishing is important?
When I look at our list at Annick, there has been sort of a change in terms of people's level of interest, I think, over the last couple of years in more diverse titles and more inclusive titles and Indigenous titles. And we've been publishing those books for a while. And so I think that sometimes we're ahead of the curve because we are smaller and we don't have the same shareholders necessarily to answer to. So we can take chances on local talent, on smaller, newer projects.
Gayna, what are your hopes for the future of publishing?
My hopes for the future of publishing are that it continues, that it is more open than it has been in the past, more inclusive, easier to access for people who are either trying to become writers and be published, and also for people who would like to work in publishing. I think that we've seen some of that start to happen. I would love to see a lot more going forward. And I think that that could only help broaden how, the industry itself survives and is successful. And the more stories we're able to tell, the better off I think we'll be as an industry.